Anthropic CEO went viral for saying that in 2026, the first $1 billion business with one human employee will be created. And today, I'm showing you exactly how AI agents will make this a reality. First, I'm going to explain the key difference between AI agents and AI workflows. Then I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step demo building an AI agent system that can be recreated for really any business or startup, and this is going to use a tool called n8n. And by the end of it, I guarantee you'll walk away from this video with actionable steps on how you can leverage AI in whatever you're working on to automate workflows and capitalize on this movement. And by the way, I'm Mac and Cheesy. I'm the COO of a tech startup that recently raised $18 million. And if you want to learn more about me, you can just check the description. Before we get to the complex stuff, we have to start with the basics because a lot of people get this wrong. And you have to understand the difference between AI agents and AI workflows. AI workflows are structured sequences where humans stitch together steps that leverage AI. Do this, then that. But an AI agent, they operate autonomously. They evaluate their own outputs, make decisions based on their own analysis without you having to babysit every single step. It's basically a virtual robot who completes tasks for you. An example of this is a tool called Devin, which is a coding agent. And at my company, we feed it a product requirement, and in many cases, it writes complex code, fixes bugs, and even deploys applications, all totally autonomously. That's an AI agent. It kind of feels like a person solving a problem. And if it sounds confusing, let's compare this to the real world because I bet you work with people who operate similar to these two categories. So you have person A who you have to tell exactly what's needed to be done to get something done. For example, I need you to find 6 people on LinkedIn who have this job description and then message them using this template. I call this the human version of an AI workflow. Then you have person B. You say, hey, I need you to figure out how we can get sales B2B. And they then go figure out how to complete this complex task. This is the human version of an AI agent. And most like real world businesses, the most successful integrators will leverage both because there is a place for both type of workers. And by this time next year, the right person will build the right business that will scale to over $1 billion by leveraging 50 plus AI agents and AI workflows to complete tasks for them. And I know what you're thinking. I'm not going to be the one building this business. Well, the concepts covered in this video apply to businesses both small and large and don't require any coding experience. And frankly, the best solutions are usually the simplest. And pulling this quote directly from Anthropic's recent blog post, the most successful implementations use simple, composable patterns rather than complex frameworks. So it doesn't have to be complicated. Before we get into building out these AI agents, how do you know when to use one versus the other in your business? Here's a simple framework, again, inspired by Anthropic. Is the task complex enough? If no, it can probably be a workflow. If yes, an AI agent. Is it valuable enough? Is completion of this worth real money? Right now, AI agents require high-level compute, which costs real dollars. That Devin agent we use, it started at like $20 an hour. Now it's around $10 an hour. That's not nothing. Are all parts doable? If it can't be done by a human, don't think an AI agent can magically solve it. For now. And what I see as the most important, what is the cost of error/error discovery? In short, if this agent messes up, is it a big deal? For example, we use Devin because it's low risk if it writes bad code. We just don't merge it into the code base. On the other hand, though, I don't have an AI agent hitting send on emails because this is higher risk. Instead, I have AI draft responses where I then have to hit send. And this is the concept called human in the loop, where automations require a human to sign off on an output before it's officially executed. You have the foundation and you now understand what AI workflows are versus AI agents and when to use one versus the other. But theory is just theory. It's now time to build a system. To create an AI agent, I'm going to use a tool called n8n, and I'm going to automate a newsletter writing process. The topics I cover here likely translate to 99% of workflows and anything that you're working on. So just follow along, trust me. And if you're not by a computer, that's fine. You'll still learn valuable insights as I go through this. We're going to be covering 2 types of workflows. The first is prompt chaining, which is a classic AI workflow, but one of the most powerful. You do this, then that. And the next is evaluator optimizer loops, which leverages LLM call evaluators. These analyze outputs for you, then provide feedback to another AI, and it won't get completed until it's up to a certain level. This will be more clear in the demo I showcase, and in my opinion, the first AI agent everyone should build. And I put that in quotes because the line between AI agent and workflow is often pretty blurry. Now, if at any point you have a question, drop a comment. I'll try and get to as many as possible. I'm going to be going through a lot of super valuable concepts pretty quickly here. The first step before building any automated flow is identifying the business goal and then breaking down the exact steps needed to complete it. In this case, my business goal is write a newsletter. So how would I normally write a newsletter? The first step is sourcing content. And to do that, I'm going to actually look at other top performing newsletters, review them, and identify trends and topics that I want the newsletter to cover. Then I want to analyze my most recent YouTube video, which will be the core subject of the newsletter. So now I have the content, then I have to draft it. So first I want to write the newsletter in my voice in a desired output. Then I want to evaluate it and then send me an email so I can review it. Let's get our hands dirty. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the demo. Sleeves are rolled up. You can see my screen share. We're good to go. So first you're going to want to log into n8n, and this is going to be your workspace for where we're going to create this AI workflow and have these AI agents collaborating together to create a final product that is a newsletter for me, because I don't want to do it. I want to have these AI workers do it for me. And so just to give you insight into the entire flow, first, I'm going to put in data about what I want the content to be. This can be an entirely automated flow, and I'm actually going to touch on it at the end of it. But just for the sake of the demo, I want to focus on the key components. So I'm going to input the data to start. Then I'm going to write a newsletter. After that, I'm going to have two evaluators review it, one for brand quality and then the other for content quality. Then I'm going to take these, and if they're not above a certain score or threshold, I'm going to provide feedback to the original script writer, which will then edit it, make revisions. It will only be approved when the quality is high enough. This will become obvious when I go through this workflow, but let's do it. So first I hit create workflow, and what you're seeing here, this is your working station. It looks, or your working environment, it looks very similar to, call it a Zapier or make.com. You add different steps, and as you build out, you'll see different places to work in this environment. So I click add first step, and for this, I want to kick it off with an n8n form where I just pass in data, and the trigger is going to be n8n form. I'm going to have a couple of variables. Let's just call this newsletter writer. The variables are going to be title, add form element, transcript, then it's going to be newsletters. I'm going to add in the YouTube title and the transcript from the YouTube video. This is going to be the core topic that I cover in my newsletter. And then newsletters is what I'm going to use as inspiration for additional cool insight and news that I want to cover in this weekly newsletter. So I hit done. I'm going to hit execute step. You'll see an output, title, transcript, newsletters. Great. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a set block. And what this allows you to do is manipulate variables and just look at the ones that you want to work with for future steps. It's pretty simple. In this case, it may not be needed, but this is going to come into play later in this demo. So I do title, I do transcript, and I do newsletters. Cool. Execute step. Easy peasy, title, transcript, newsletters. The next step I want to do is I have all the content. I now need to write the actual newsletter. So I do OpenAI. I'm going to do message a model. This I've already synced my account. It's pretty straightforward on how you can sync your account. And as I go through this, I'm going to assume that you're going to have things like OpenAI and Gmail all set up. There's a ton of different tutorials online on how to do that. It's pretty trivial. So then I select a model, ChatGPT 4o. I've already created a prompt. I'm going to pass that in. And in here, there's different variables that you can use. So let me just show you how to actually do this. I have title, transcript, newsletters here. I'm going to want to bring in this title. That's the YouTube title. Here's the YouTube transcript. You can see it populating on the side. And then you can see news items, which is from other newsletters. Beautiful. Now, if you don't know how to create a prompt, what my favorite starting point is using AI. So in this case, I would say, hey, I need to create an optimized prompt where I want to write a newsletter and I want to provide a YouTube transcript title, or I want to provide a YouTube title, YouTube transcript, as well as some recent news. And then I also want it to follow a specific structure. So a newsletter format, and it'll give you a whole prompt that you can then use in ChatGPT where you plug in the variables that you want. And I wouldn't optimize the prompt here. Go ahead and do that on the actual editor. So on ChatGPT, on Claude, on Gemini, whatever you're using, and then bring it in here when you're ready to bring it to production. So, okay, this is all ready. I'm going to execute this step. Okay, so that node just operated successfully. We can see the output, steal this $100 million marketing flywheel, then automate the whole thing with AI. Kind of nice. Okay, let's go to the next step because this is just an output. I now need AIs to work together to create a better final product. This is what I call the evaluators. So I'm creating an OpenAI block, and one thing that I do like to do as these workflows get more complex is name them. So I'm gonna call this an evaluator and content police. We're going with content police. That's not explicit. I'm gonna make it better. Content editor, content reviewer. This is a fun part, naming variables. Select from a list, ChatGPT for latest. I'm gonna add 2 messages. And the first message is actually going to be a system prompt. What I like to do is think of these AI tools and these AI agents as no different than employees that exist in the workspace. And so when you have an employee, you actually have to train them before they can go ahead and do functions. And so think of this system prompt as training the AI to do what you need it to do. And then the message is where it's like, okay, I need to go and do this. Now, as I go through this demo, again, AI agents, AI workflows, there is a difference there. I'm using them slightly interchangeably. That's fine. The details are what matter. Whatever you call it, I don't really care. So for this, now back to it, for this system prompt, I've already created that. This is, again, use AI to create an evaluator expression. One thing I do want to call out about this specific evaluator is I'm grading it on a score 1 to 5 on a couple of different metrics: value versus fluff, creator voice, actionability, depth, non-obviousness, structure flow, template adherence. And the output I'm requesting that its output format is in JSON and that it has an overall score and overall feedback. The overall score and feedback is what I'm going to use to feedback to the content writer as a way to improve the output. And if you want to just look at what this whole looks like, you are an expert newsletter editor, each of these 6 dimensions, yada, yada, yada. Again, use ChatGPT to actually draft the prompt for you. Do not start from scratch. That's the system prompt. And then the input that I actually want to provide is the content. That's the actual message. Great. I can execute that step if I'd like. Beautiful. Next, I do want to do 2 things here. I want to parallelize this reviewer as well as what I call the head of brand. Now, again, think of all of these nodes as potential employees that work for you. And much like how you could have a head of brand or a head of social where you run every social post by at a company, that's the same with AI agents, and you shouldn't have to cross-train these people. So if I want to make sure that every piece of content that I produce is up to my brand standards, then do you think it would make sense to make the same exact brand reviewer across every single workflow, or have one that you just reference through these workflows? Rhetorical question. The second is a better solution. And so what I'm going to do is create a sub workflow, which is essentially an employee that I'm going to call head of brand. That's only goal is to make sure that the output is in my personal tone of voice. So I come here, I'm going to add a block, type in workflow, execute sub workflow, execute a sub workflow. I've already created this. I'll show you what I do on it. Head of brand. I'm going to come here. I'm going to draw a line in here. This is going to error, and I'm going to show you why. Bad request. Please check your parameters. This is major key. The whole time when you're going through this demo or when you're getting your hands dirty, variable naming is critical, and how you pass in these variables is so, so important. So let's open up head of brand and see what it's expecting. Here is a execute workflow block, OpenAI, edit fields. Everything should look familiar to you, except there's one thing I want to call out. This is expecting an LLM generator output. That's the response, the variable that it's looking for, LLM underscore generator output. If you look at our workflow, it's passing in message.content. It has a different variable naming convention. So what I want to do is I actually want to come in here. I'm going to add a block and it's called set. This is where I can just change how variables are referred to. So this is message.content. Instead, I want to do LLM. What was that name? LLM. I'm just going to bring this in. LLM generator output. I'm going to execute that step. LLM generator output. Nice. Then I now bring those both in. Let me check this to see what it's expecting. That's not what we want to do anymore. Oh, delete that. LLM generator output. Bing, bang, boom. Easy peasy. Now let's try and execute this workflow. Oh, I have to execute this step before. Ooh. Now I draw a line in here. Let's execute the workflow. We can probably just go and execute the workflow. And it worked. LLM generator output, brand brief feedback, as well as the brand score. For that evaluator, I have it returning a brand brief feedback as well as a score. And these two values I'm going to plug into the next step. So one thing that we have going on is we have two different LLMs that are running reuse requests simultaneously, and one may take longer than the other. So we need to make sure that we don't go to the next step in the process until both have come back and responded. And so a good way to do this is using a merge block, selecting choose a branch, wait until for all inputs to arrive, single empty item. And when we execute this step, it basically just waits for the response. Once we hit execute, beautiful, everything's all set there. What I'm actually going to do is make sure that we drag in these two outputs. There we go. Next, we're going to do a if condition. So we have both the scores, but we want to make sure that this task is only considered complete if the score is high enough and it meets the head of brand requirements as well as the evaluator for the content requirements. If not, it's going to send the feedback back to the writer and tell it what it needs to change. So how do we do this? Well, let's bring in the brand score. And let's say this is number, it is greater than, let's call it 4. Then let's add another condition. We're going to add another condition from, let's show me adding this and realizing that was the wrong data set. So we just added the brand score. Now I want the overall score. So I go in and I look, and would you look at that? The message isn't properly formatted. I wonder if there's a way that we can easily format this so that I can very easily pull in the actual score. The answer is yes. Wouldn't be asking if it wasn't. Let's go to that block. So we come to evaluator of content, and we're going to put output content as JSON. Let's just see what happens. Execute step. And now it's detailed, structured, overall score. And if I come to this if condition, I see the scores are properly formatted, and I can pull in this overall score. Number is greater than, let's call it 4.8. If it's greater than 4.8, I'm going to actually then send an email. So let's go to Gmail and let's do send a message. Gmail account already synced it. Send to my email testing demo. Email type is going to be text, so it's properly formatted. The message is actually going to be from the content writer, LLM generated output. And then if it isn't over this if statement, I'm going to actually go and bring it up over here. Oops. Now, how this is currently written, it doesn't provide feedback. from this if statement into this OpenAI model. So one simple way that I can do this is I'm actually going to create an additional if statement as well as an additional OpenAI step to take in this feedback. This way it'll funnel based on the variables that this if statement has. So I come in, I add, I do an if statement. Let me click this button to clean this all up. Then I'm going to add another OpenAI. Actually, I'm going to copy and paste this OpenAI. Right click, duplicate. I'm going to bring that here, dragging it in here. Then that'll go right into that input. Now there's a couple of things that I need to adjust, which is going to be the exact variables I reference over here. So execute previous nodes. Here I'm going to add the overall score, the overall feedback, the brand brief score, the brand score. I'm also going to add the LLM generated output. This is all the information that's important going forward. So I'm going to execute step. This is the data that I need for the next step. Then I can execute the step. I don't know if I need this. Trying to just do the drag and drop that I've done to date, I actually am running into an error. That's because I'm trying to reference set final submission variables the first time I run this workflow, and that hasn't actually been called yet. If you go and look at the flow, right? If you run this and you reference this block, that doesn't exist yet. And so we're running into an issue. And honestly, a good way to find a solution for this is you click their Ask AI button. I already asked it. It tells me how I can handle this. So if you want to reference data from your current input, use the following expressions. So if I bring this JSON overall feedback, I'm referencing a variable that doesn't exist at this point. This is fine because I know in the next iteration, it will exist. There are more graceful solutions in this, but I thought this is just a simple way to actually do it in this case. And so I'm actually going to bring this all in right now. And I'm going to use that to my advantage. Undefined, null, null, null. Great. Then in this case, if overall feedback is equal to null, and if LM generated output is equal to null, and if brand brief feedback is equal to null, do one thing. This is my way of saying, hey, if this is the first go around, do this. I'm going to rename this block where I'm going to say initial content writing. Great. That's when we initially write it. Then this is content writer with feedback. Content writer with feedback. Let me open this up. And I'm going to edit this now with the variables. So previous submission here, LM generated output. And then previous brand feedback. And then I'm going to have a previous overall feedback. What will come in here? Beautiful. That will provide the feedback. And again, we're only referencing this content after it's been defined. So the initial run is going to go here. The next run is going to go here. Now, one thing I do want to call out before we actually run this, you need to make sure that you're referencing the right element in your iteration. So a good way to do this is see how this is LM generator output. This is the most recent item. But if there's multiple items for this specific variable, you're going to run into an issue. So a way to solve for that is you use last. And so let's say you have multiple runs and you set this LM generated output variable multiple times. It'll create a list. And what you're doing by saying use the last variable, it's saying, hey, use the newest variable in this list. So now I'm actually going to go ahead and run this thing. Let's see if it works. Comment below if you think we're going to get this on the first try. Ooh, okay. If statement worked. The second iteration, it did not like the first iteration. Ooh. These evaluators are hardcore, sir. Ooh. Problem. Multiple matches found. Oh, did I not save this? I didn't change it here. This is the error that I was foreshadowing. See how it says dot item? I need to do dot last. And then I need to do dot last. Execute step. Let me just make sure that these are statements have that properly handled. Across the board. One thing I like to do when testing is I like to set data so that I have controls. And so I'm actually going to just hit edit output. I'm going to hit save. And then this is pin data. This will run whenever I execute the workflow. Will it work the second time? I thought I got ahead of that error. I just missed it. Happens. Okay, second try, we're running it. First go, it didn't approve of it. Now we're executing the workflow. I actually upped the requirements so that it had to be a 5 and a 5. You can see it going back and forth. Oop, this is the third iteration. We're strict. Nothing easy from these workers. And beautiful. We sent ourselves an email. Let's take a look. Okay, how I cloned Hermosi's $100 million ad machine using AI. That's what the video was on. What's the topic? Why is it important? What if you didn't need an agency studio or years of marketing experience? It's kind of good. Some formatting issues here. Key things to consider. Are people doing this? What's step one? This is pretty good. This is what I'm looking for. So this is the whole workflow to actually draft the email. Now, let's say I rename this workflow to email writing process. Okay, that's this workflow. Now, one of the things I touched on in the beginning of the demo is that I'm manually putting in the data that I want this to write about. And much like when you're building out computer code, if you're a programmer, is you want to compartmentalize as many functions as possible. So when there's an issue, you know exactly where it came from. And so what I could do is I can create another sub workflow that's all about retrieving data. And I've already done that. So let me just show you what that looks like. Let's just show you the get YouTube transcripts. This is a concurrent workflow. This looks more like a traditional, not even an AI workflow, just a workflow where it does one thing then the other. And n8n is great at this as well. And when you're building out your team, remember, think of these things as individual tasks. Who are your agents? Who are the people that are just completing tasks? Where is the juice coming from? And a key thing that I like to focus on is build out the thing that's important that you're not sure if it'll actually work in practice. In this case, I knew I could go and get YouTube transcripts. I knew I could get emails. I didn't know if the AI could provide feedback and create a product that I actually liked and want to use. I've proven that. Now I can build out the other steps. Remember, looking at this entire workflow, we made this in about 5 to 10 minutes. And this is a specific process, and traditionally, right, a newsletter writer could spend hours, if not days, working on this, waiting to get feedback, getting feedback, and iterating. This is happening in seconds, and it's only getting better. So this is just one employee in what will be a swath of workers for this next billion-dollar business. Now let's get into actionable advice on how you can start today using AI agents. All this is great, but if you don't apply this to something, you're gonna forget a lot of it. So how do you get started today? First, identify your core functions. What do you do every week that can be automated? What are the things that you're spending a lot of the time on? This can be anything from content creation, customer service, data analysis, sales outreach, product development, marketing automation, general admin. There's a ton of things that you do in your day-to-day, so just think, do you have any low-hanging fruit that you can automate? Then it's step 2, which is get your hands dirty and just build. Don't overthink it, just start doing and you'll learn. And one key that I want to stress on is don't just build a science project. And what I mean is, if you're just doing something to try and learn, you're probably not actually going to learn that well. Build something you actually plan to use. This way, you'll go deeper into understanding how it works and think of ways to improve it. And that's where the real unlock comes. For example, in this video, I walked through creating a newsletter, which is something that I personally need. If I was just making it about, let's say, outbound sales calls, something I currently don't need, I naturally would be less interested and the learnings I'd get would be much worse. And the third step is remember to keep it simple, stupid. Don't overthink it. The next billion-dollar business wasn't built in 1 hour. Start small, start simple, and start practical. And if you got this far, I guarantee you learned a thing or two and you're ready to start building. And to continue with this momentum, watch this video on how I use AI to steal Alex Hormozi's $100 million marketing strategy. I'll see you over there. Let's get it.